Okay. The next section here talks about risk taking. And I want to read this first, the introduction paragraph, because I think in some ways this actually speaks directly to the crisis of the moment. Intending to expose someone to mortal danger. Quote, a practical starting point for differentiation is provided by the traditional common law model since, like the Scots model, it is heavily indebted to common sense notions of moral heinousness, which sustained a differentiated penal response. It was suggested earlier that this approach, in its various guises, is unable to locate a cogent, socially approved basis for determining the level of depravity required. This can clearly be discerned in the following optimistic and woolly evaluation of American Contempt for Life approach from one of its supporters, dot, dot, dot. Okay, why do I say this? First of all, if we're talking about a criminal consideration, that is not necessarily merely a matter for common law analysis or application, including if it is specific to a constitutional question, including if we are talking about a constitutional question that has already been posited and for which the court has already provided instruction that it is to be reconsidered at a later time in different manners. I do not contend that that means the court is saying, well, you can mete it out through some form of abuse of alleged common law in abrogation of the actual constitutional implications, and then assess it as part of a risk analysis connected to in what manner you're going to determine whether or not it is depraved enough to qualify in connection with other criminal charges. A. B. It's very important to discuss this from the cogent, socially approved basis, determining the level of depravity required. This also has to deal with considerations of acknowledging and explicitly and clearly stating that one understands that in practice of their own understanding of their rights, including and especially constitutional rights, that certain actions that are already adjudged as violations of law and have already been determined by the courts to be worthy of consideration in regards to the punishment that is to be applied are considered to be so depraved that that person is under an understanding that attempting to compel them to try to condone or engage those acts themselves is an effort to actually threaten to provide and to inflict upon them bodily harm, including by their refusal to engage in such depravity. And I say this specifically with an understanding. I am in Texas, and events in my life have directly correlated with the Supreme Court hearing a case about applying capital punishment to people that have engaged sexual assault of minors. That was taken to the Supreme Court, at least in part, in connection with oral arguments provided by people who were in political office at the time in the state of Texas and representing the state of Texas, i.e., is capital punishment an appropriate form of punishment for people that engage violent sexual assault of minors? This is a case that actually went before the Supreme Court of the United States. And then when there was a consideration of other matters pertaining to what's considered appropriate sexual activity, and one conspicuously and consistently intends to visit ever-increasing levels of reprisal against somebody who refuses to either simulate scenarios involving sexual violence involving children or actually engaging in acts of sexual depravity and being punished with ever-increasing deprivation of their rights, up to and including homelessness, up to and including being physically assaulted without any redress, up to and including having their identification documents stolen and being denied any capacity to acquire not only a legal income for themselves, but also to access other resources, including court resources, up to and including being electronically tortured, including genitally tortured for protracted periods of time, and up to and including being repeatedly psychically assaulted under the auspices that they are required to perform some form of sex act, including a depraved public sex act in a dangerous setting, in order to be adjudged to have paid for some illegal debt that is also aimed at trying to compel them to engage in the acts of depravity that they have said they believe under the law should be considered capital offenses. So we're talking about multiple crimes with the understanding that the threat here is that if you do not engage in what you understand and believe is a capital offense, we will kill you.